Have a Nice Death is a dark, comical game about corporate shenanigans. The concept is rather simple. Death is an old soul and trying to continue his family business. But as time goes on, all the work just seems to keep piling up and up, to the point where work as a whole just can't be done. Because of this, Death takes it upon himself to hire restless spirits and monsters that you meet throughout the game. Today, it's like any other day, but something is off. All documents that Death himself needs to approve just keep piling and piling and coming, and with seemingly no end. Someone, or some people, aren't doing their job properly, so Death kinda snaps, and, with the approval of HR, decides to go down the corporate tower in a not-so-diplomatic way to beat some sense into the many branch managers who may, or may not be, slacking on the job. It should be noted that as of recording, Have a Nice Death is still in early access and has been out since the 8th of March, on Steam and Steam Deck respectively. As for the new releases on Switch, Xbox, and PlayStation, at least to my knowledge and my research, I have not been able to find any evidence or updates on when they're going to be announced, so I think that needs to be cooking in the pot for a few more months or so before we get any information about that. Now that we have done with the intro, let's talk about the game. As of recording this, I have just over 6 hours in the game, and these points are just some thoughts of mine. First one is the art and aesthetic is dark, and with good reason. This is a world of death, for death, from Death himself. Joy and life are pretty much absent in almost everything, including the color. Everything is a murky variation of gray, or a very hyper, unsaturated light of some ghost enemies. They did everything to tell you that this environment is just not for the mortal realm. In fact, in some areas, they just don't hold back at all. Talking about suicide or referencing addiction and some very drastic points, and kind of unforgiving. To the point where they have to give a warning at the very start of the game, and it doesn't seem like they have to do it to get on everyone's good side. It seems more like they want to do it because they care about the people that they're marketing for, and they really don't want to cause any trouble. And it comes out more wholesome than it comes out more as entitlement. The characters are small, at least right away. However, most are cute. Some are kind of not. In the case, there's a gnarly man that has been flayed of all skin, but his personality and his dialogue completely make up for it, where you kind of look past the reality of the character and you get to know a very motivational and inspirational character, and it really makes you want to read the bio and who this character is and how he ended up here and why he's doing what he does and how he acts like he does. And it's very clever because this kind of transfers over to all characters, and it's bizarre, but it's very entertaining. For example, the HR manager, the character in the game that gives you passive buffs and quirks and stuff, he's like this old crypt keeper ghoul man, and his whole thing is that he's willing to help you because you're his boss, but he's rather indifferent and shows massive disinterest in everything, and it's really funny if you stop to break down what he actually says sometimes. The music, to be honest, is okay. Now, I won't be the one to state that I know a whole bunch about music, and that really shines a light here. It's music, for sure, but it doesn't really pop out. Not like the main menu theme, which, from an outside view, doesn't really spark a lot of interest as well. However, once you start to understand Death, the main character, as a character, it really makes sense, where it's a good resemblance that he's a bitter old man, but he knows that he needs to step up and act, even though it's pretty clear that he really doesn't want to exert that much effort to get his way. Ultimately, he knows that because he's in charge, he has to. So he comes off more disgruntled, and it really solidifies the idea of Death in a way where I didn't expect. I can't really say the same for the rest of the OST. At least not so far. Again, I haven't really finished the game, so there could be more tracks that I'm missing. But so far, outside the main theme, nothing has really popped my interest. Now I'm going to talk about the problems that I have with this game. Disclaimer, none of these are solidified, none of these are objective, these are all my own thoughts. I do not design games, I only play them, but I have a few notes. Only two major ones, and only two that I'm going to discuss in this video. The first one would have to be the dash. The dash is very convenient when it's convenient. When it's not, you feel cheated. The dash has iframes, but they're so tight. It feels. And when you don't dodge something with the dash, it just feels wrong. It doesn't feel justified. It feels like you did everything in your power, but you still got hit anyway, and it leaves this sour taste in your mouth. And not only that, the dash is it gives you so much distance to the point where it's bizarre, because sometimes you will dash out of an attack to only smack into another enemy, or as it happens to me many times, I have dashed out of an attack to then dash into another attack. And it seems weird because it's not something you can easily control, and unless you dash completely out of the way, it doesn't feel like a good dash half the time. It's more of a traversal than it is to actually dodge enemy placements. And I feel like a lot of it can be just changed a little bit if the distance was just tweaked a bit, you know? The second point that I take issue in is the lack of permanent upgrades. Now, you can buy, or as the game says, invest in weapons and consumables that you then, after purchasing, can encounter on future runs. But aside from that, nothing is a permanent upgrade. The weak little ghosts and ghouls and book enemies that you fight at the very beginning of the game will need the same 4 to 5 hit combo that they'll need at the very end of the game. It seems like it's there for padding, and it doesn't make you feel stronger, despite you being the character which you are. And I feel like it's so exhausting after continuous runs, because it doesn't feel like anything's changing, it doesn't feel like you're improving, and it doesn't feel like you're advancing. At least to me. Especially in the first world, where you don't have any options to get any other gear that could help you along the way. Another thing too is, like, you would need some damage at some point, because the scythe is hilariously weak at the very beginning, and there are ways to upgrade it, but it's only for the current run you're in, and it just feels so soulless, taking all that power away without any of it, not even remotely smidge of it, being able to continue over. Now, I hope this is something that they're going to add in, as a reminder, this is an early access title. But I'm really hoping that they add more into here, because right now it just feels like you're running against a wall for 3 hours with the hopes of improving, with the hopes of advancing, and nothing seems like it's a guarantee. And it feels it's exhausting, to put it lightly. In the end, I can see so much potential of what this game can be, and I cannot wait for its full release. Now, I'm still going to invest more time into it. I have 6.2 hours into it, and you bet your ass that I'm going to be putting another 6.2 hours into it. And I can't wait for the full release to come, whenever it does come, because I just want to see more of this world, more of the characters, more gameplay. And that's not to say that there's nothing here, because it very much is here. I just feel like it's missing that one thing, but I also know that that one thing will eventually be coming, and it's exciting, and I can't wait for it to come. So, expect more gameplay of this. Of me not playing like shit. I'm sorry. Have a Nice Death so far gets an early 7 out of 10, but that is an extremely loose grade, as I just need to sink a few more hours, and I need to beat each run a few more times to get some of the story before I can come down with a solidified review. Now that I talked your ear off for about 9 minutes, I have roughly 10 minutes, maybe a little bit less, of extra footage of me also playing like total dog shit. So I'm just going to let that play in the background, the main theme, just so you guys can get your own little feel about the game if you haven't already checked it out.